live streaming thing. So I think we're doing it right. But if we're not, we will record as well and can always just upload the video.
Cool. I'm actually on the YouTube channel and I see that the live stream is there. So that's good.
Cool. That's kind of meta. I'm gonna have to close that browser window because that's going to confuse me.
Yeah.
All right, Peter, where are you? All right. You know what? I'm going to start recording. We're just going to get started. I'll promote Peter to panelist when he joins. Okay, awesome. So thanks everyone for joining Flexbox Fridays. If you don't know, Flexbox Fridays is kind of Draftbit's office hours that we like to do every Friday. These are at 10:30 a.m. US Central Time, which is, I think, 16:30 GMT for those of you across the pond. And today we have Nader. Nader is I might get this wrong, Nader, a senior developer advocate.
That's right.
Okay. With AWS Amplify. And we only have Nader for about 30 minutes here. So I thought what we could do today, Nader, is, we saw your live stream about building that conference app with AWS Amplify. And it was kind of funny. Peter and I both said to ourselves, "Oh man, they're hand coding the front end. Like, how medieval! Like, we gotta get that on Draftbit." So we reached out to you and we're like, "Hey, can we check out Amplify? Have you show us around?" Since we only have you for about 30 minutes, I figured let's just use this 30 minutes to have you do your thing, kind of show us around AWS. We'll probably interject with some questions and stuff like that. But otherwise, I wanted to give you the floor if that's cool with you. And then maybe for the second half hour, Peter and I can mess around with it on our own and see if we can't get it hooked up to Draftbit. We already kind of built the app, the front end on the Draftbit side, and we can mess around with that once we don't have you anymore. Does that sound cool?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right, awesome. Cool. I'm going to give you the floor.
Cool. That sounds good. So let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and get my one thing fixed on my end so I can go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, so I mean, I guess the thing that we might go over today is I will try to go ahead and run that conference app in a box app, kind of walk through a little bit of the back end to show you what's there, and then kind of jump into a separate app where I've already kind of built out an API that's using a different type of authentication, because I'm actually not sure on Draftbit how you would deal with an authentication and authorization flow. But at the end of the day, this app is essentially just pulling posts from an API and kind of listing them out and sorting them by date and stuff like that and by time, because, we're essentially going to be building like a conference app. And when you think of a conference app, you don't have a ton of interactivity for the most part. Like you can build in some extra stuff, but most of the time you're pulling up the app, you're looking at the location of the event, maybe the events that are happening during the actual event. So like the talks, but also maybe the after party, and all that stuff can be like stored in an API somewhere. And the idea with Conference App in a Box was this was like during the peak of the in-person conference season, like before coronavirus. That's when this was kind of made. And I'm actually working on a web version of this that's kind of adds the ability to have live streaming. But the idea was basically all these conferences were popping up and a lot of people were wanting to build conference apps. So we built this, or I built this, and it ended up working out pretty good because a bunch of people ended up using it for their events. So ended up having a few dozen use it for their events, but I even had a few people sell the app within a consulting type of deal where they were charging a lot of money for it. Like one person that I know spent like a few hours on it and I helped them get it going, but they had sold the contract for like 15 grand. So like, it was like, that type of stuff. But when you think about it, the value is there. Like they actually delivered $15,000 worth of value, regardless of how long it took them to actually build the thing. So like, I think stuff like that is really, really powerful when you talk about developer velocity, being able to build stuff quickly. And I think that's where Draftbit is like going to come in and be like really, really popular and successful for people that are just looking to build quickly on the front end, and stuff like AWS Amplify, what even Firebase has done, and all these other backend services, backends as a service, provide the backend developer velocity. So
yeah. So, and remind us with this conference app, what did you use to build the front end? Was it hand coded, or did you use any drag and drops or WYSIWYGs or anything like that?
So when you're on the front end or the back end?
On the front end, sorry.
On the front, yeah, it was kind of hand coded. I'm actually trying to share my screen, but I upgraded to Catalina, and it's telling me that I need to close Zoom and then come back and open it in. Is that okay if I do that real quick? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
I just upgraded. Like, I'm 2 years late, obviously, 1.5 years. So I just did it the night before last.
Friendly advice: don't make the next leap to Big Sur unless you're ready to hate your life.
No, I haven't done that yet. I'm like really late to the game because I know how those things are. But I think I waited a little too long this time with Catalina. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll be right back.
That's all good. Okay, cool. So while Nader's doing that, hey, Peter, welcome. For those of you who don't know, Peter is the CTO and co-founder of Draftbit. Peter and Nader are also buddies. So Peter was the one who was able to twist Nader's leg into coming onto this live stream. And yeah, Peter, I was just telling everyone, we saw Nader's tweet about the conference app demo, and we're like, oh my God, they hand coded the front end. Like, how medieval? Why would you subject yourself to that? So last night, literally, we built the front end in Draftbit in like a couple of hours, probably less than a couple of hours. And
wow.
I figured, maybe in the second half of this live stream, after Nader does his thing with AWS Amplify, maybe you and I, Peter, could try and like figure out if maybe we can hook up some parts of this AWS database to our app. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, cool. Should be fun to mess around with.
Sorry for running late, fellas. Oh, go ahead, Nader.
Oh, I'm sorry, Peter. What's up?
Yeah, what's going on? Sorry for running late. I had some technical difficulties with the Zoom link, but all good now. I love your theme, by the way. That VS Code theme is sick. I'm going to have to ask you about that.
Cyberpunk.
Cool.
So is my text too big or too small, or is it fine?
I think that right there is perfect.
Okay. So basically, everything starts with your data model, essentially. And there's two ways to create data models. You can do them in code, or you can do them visually. So we have now a UI where you can kind of like create this in your Amplify admin dashboard, or you can kind of write it out yourself. I'm kind of a code person, so I like to write stuff out for my backend stuff at least. And this kind of just describes like what's going on in the app. So we have, a type for the talk, we have a type for the comment, and for whatever other operations that you want to work with. So for instance, when you think of most apps, you typically consider you have CRUD and list operations. So create, read, update, delete, and list. And when you're working with GraphQL, you typically have to write a lot of code to make that work. But we have these directives, which are kind of allow you to add additional functionality. And in this case, the @model directive will create all of the GraphQL operations that you would typically need. So create, read, update, delete, talk. Also subscriptions for real time, and then finally a list operation. So just getting an array of talks, and then you can add additional subscriptions, additional queries for additional functionality. And in this case, I'm adding a query for just getting the comments for a specific talk. Because if like you create a talk and then you have in the app people comment on the talk, you might want to just query for those comments and not all the comments. So I created a query for that. And then I created a filtered subscription. So like when you think of like the real-time data coming through, you might want to have those comments coming through in real time. And you can pass up to 5 arguments into a subscription to kind of get a filtered selection set of whatever's going on. So in this case, we want to subscribe to only the comments for a particular talk in that view. So like you're viewing a talk and you're viewing the comments, you don't want to see the comments from another talk, of course. So this just allows you to do that with a couple of lines of code. But when you're working with Amplify and AppSync, and that's kind of what we're talking about. Amplify is the framework to deploy AWS services, and then AppSync is the actual service, which is the GraphQL as a service. You can interact with it in a few different ways, like as far as authentication and authorization are concerned. And I think for most use cases, basic use cases, public access is kind of what you would consider. So for instance, if you had a blog and you want anyone to read the blog posts as they come through, or you're building, like in our case, a conference app, you want pretty much anyone to be able to see the talks. So you pretty much can use public access. And then all you need to get public access to work is pass in a header for X API key, and then set the API key, and then you should be good to go. So I don't know if that's what y'all are going to be doing, but I'm assuming that's probably the case. But you can also add OpenID Connect as an authentication provider if you want to use stuff like Okta or Auth0 or any OAuth provider. You can also use Cognito, which is Amazon's managed identity service. So all that stuff works. But I have two things I want to do. So I basically have the conference app in the box that I just downloaded, and I want to try to like deploy this. And then while this is deploying, I have an existing app that I've started where I'm going to like play around with fetching some data, and then hopefully within the next 15 minutes we can also launch conference app in the box. I don't know if we will be able to. We'll try. But basically I've cloned it. I'm going to go ahead and initialize the Amplify backend, because basically when you work with any Amplify project, you have this backend folder that you can just reinitialize across any app. So, this is essentially like infrastructure as code that you can share across multiple front ends. So this is going to walk us through a few steps. And like I have all these steps outlined here, and it's actually just 3 steps, I think. So you run Amplify init. Of course, you need to install the dependencies, and then you run Amplify push. And this is just going to kind of deploy the AWS backend. And I think
Nader, while this is working. Oh,
what's up? No, go ahead. No, I'm just talking.
So while this is like kind of running, like, is it easy to get the Amplify CLI like hooked up? Is that like a multi-step process? Is it like traditional, you just like register and then like sync your token? Like
it's actually pretty easy to set up, but the problem and the biggest friction point for most people is just setting up their AWS account in the first place. So if you don't have an AWS account, you actually have to create one, and you need a credit card. I think that's the biggest friction point, I think, for people getting started with AWS, because you can use something like Firebase without a credit card, which makes it like a lot easier for a lot of people around the world that maybe just dipping their toes in. But if you're interested in using it, you need to just set up an AWS account, and then after that, it's actually pretty simple. And we walk through that in our docs. You just run a command, and it brings you up here. And then once you're signed in, you create a user, and then you associate that user with a local configuration file. But the CLI kind of does it for you. So
cool.
But
thank you.
But after you initialize the app, you kind of are ready to deploy it. So we see that we have like 2 services that we want to deploy, auth and API. So I'm going to run Amplify push, and then this should go ahead and deploy our backend. And it's going to ask me if I want to create some code in just a second for GraphQL code generation locally. Like this is basically code gen by schema introspection. And we don't really need that because since I cloned this whole app, I already have that code like written and stuff. So I don't really need to do that. But that's the app we're going to test in just a moment. But for now, I've kind of initialized an Amplify app. And basically what I want to do is look at the data model that we have for this app, because it's a lot more simple, I think. I'm in the wrong folder. Let me go. Actually, no, that should be it. Let's try that one. Oh, there we go. Oh no, this is the same. Let me go to the build and see what I have here. Yeah, this is the actual type that we want to work with. I think I maybe have copied and pasted that here. Okay, so for the data model here, for this other example app that we're going to first try out, we just have a really basic like post type. And I always think this is a good example because this is not a to-do. but it's the same idea, but it applies to more things. So when you think of like Twitter, when you think of Instagram, or when you think of Facebook or anything like that, really, you can consider each of those things like a post, right? And then you query for an individual post in a detail view, and you query for a list of those things in the list view, and that's kind of like the backbone of so many apps. So I always kind of use this example. And that's kind of what we've deployed. We just have a few different properties on this type. We have a name and a description, and we want to query for that and kind of get it into our React Native app. So to do that, you might want to actually create that data first. So from the command line, we can run Amplify console API and any project that has an API. And this will go ahead and open up the dashboard where you can start playing around with your data. And you're given like this graphical editor, and you can either go here and kind of add a mutation or query, or you can just type the code in yourself. So we might just go ahead and create a post real quick.
And real quick, Nader, did I notice, do you have the option to do both GraphQL and REST?
Yes, you do have the option to create a REST API. And the REST API is, so when you think of GraphQL as a service, it's like a managed thing. So it kind of combines the API, the authentication, and the database itself. And it's kind of, a way to kind of get up and running with all that together. With REST, you kind of have to piece together a couple of things. Well, two things really. You have to piece together the database. Well, actually, when you think of it, three things. You have the database, you have the business logic execution environment on the back end, which is for what we do as a Lambda function. And then you have the API endpoint for invoking that function to then interact with the database. So yeah, when you choose REST, you can actually deploy a combination of database, REST API, and Lambda function. It's all packaged together. And then you can go in there and like write your business logic and stuff like that.
Cool, thank you.
So for this post, I'll like drop the demo description, and we'll just create a post, and then we might create another post. Draftbit conf, is that coming up soon?
We hope. I can't wait to start having conferences again, like in person.
In person, what's that?
And another thing, I actually upgraded my Mac and an Xcode as well, and I haven't run that conference app in a box app yet on this Mac, so I don't know if that's going to work, but we'll try it anyway. Hopefully it will. But you know how it is with React Native and all that, using React Native CLI, right?
Yeah.
So we have these two items. So what we basically want to do is query for those in our app. And the way that we're going to do that is we're just going to go back into our app. And we want to open our app.js. And also we'll notice like in this SRC folder that we have this GraphQL folder. We actually, the CLI created it for me here. I probably should have moved it up one directory and had it in the root, but essentially we have this GraphQL folder, which I'm going to move. And then I'll probably, I'll leave that there, it's fine. But the GraphQL folder just has all the different operations that we're going to work with. So in this app, we probably want to like list post. So I can like import list post from GraphQL/queries. And then from React Native, from React, we might want to import use state. And I promise this is going to actually come back to the conference app in just a second. We're just showing a basic version before we get into a little slightly more complicated, or it's not even complicated, but more in-depth version. So we want to kind of like create some state. What's up?
So I just wanted to point out, so that list post, was that automatically generated?
Yes, exactly. So
wow, cool.
The CLI will, like when you deploy, or at any time, you can just run an Amplify code gen command, and it will introspect your current GraphQL schema and just generate all of the different operations based on your defined operations. So it'll look in your queries, your subscriptions, and your mutations, and just generate.
Wow.
which is really helpful. So in use effect, we're just gonna like invoke a function called like fetch post. And then here's where we need to call amplify backend. So we have a category, like it's basically a GraphQL client called API, or it's actually just, it's a REST and a GraphQL client actually. And using this GraphQL client, we can then basically call API.GraphQL, and then we pass in the query. And that query is list post. So yeah, so our authorization type is API key, okay. And then we can basically just call set post here. Then we can pass in the posts. But this is actually an object because like it has additional data. It has a way for you to do like pagination. So there's like a next token and there's other data there. But so we need to kind of drill down and get post.data.list posts, the query, and then .items. So the items array is kind of what we're working with. And then here, instead of like looking for this, so step one, maybe we can copy this design. Excuse me. We can just map over the posts.
Hey Nader, do you all have a like a use GraphQL hook too? Just out of curiosity.
We do have one, but I don't know. I'm like not the biggest fan of it because we in demos like this, especially because a lot of people are using. Well, I guess in this example, not everyone, but most people are also considering like Vue or working with Svelte and those other things. So, but yeah, we do have one.
Cool, thank you.
Sure. And then I think I'm trying to remember the schema. So we have a name and a description, and then we might just put the post description here. All right, so I'm gonna reload and see if there's some errors here, which there probably are. Whoops, I'm using the wrong thing. I need to actually debug.
Do you ever?
Do you all still write React Native like on the day-to-day basis, or are you all writing like Reason only?
I mean, Draftbit developers internally, like it's all Reason and Rescript, you know, and then TypeScript. But there's support for that for the React Native side. I did want to ask you, like, React Native versus Expo, like, do you have a preference for one or the other?
Oh, I should have put the weights here. Do I have a preference over REST or GraphQL?
React Native or Expo? You know, like I know you're using like a.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I like both of them, and I think they both serve different purposes. I think for apps that, or it's almost like Amplify in my opinion. Like if you look at Amplify, it only fits a certain type of like use case, like whatever we support. And if we don't support what you're looking for, then use something else. And it's the same with Expo. Like Expo has a really sweet, great set of things, but if you need something outside of that, you have to use something else. So I always look at it the same way. Like I'll use Expo if I can. If not, then I'll use React Native. But Expo would be my first choice. Yeah. But now we see that our data is coming back, and we have you know, all that stuff. So basically, all we're doing is like fetching and updating a list, and then we would probably want to have like a drill down where you click on that, and that's essentially like what Conference App in the Box is. So let's go back to that window and see if this deployed properly, and it looks like it did. So what I want to do is go ahead and close the terminal there. Try to run npm start over here. And then go ahead and open this up in Xcode. Why would the default to the iPod Touch? I don't get that. Does that even exist anymore?
Funny.
Is that like the
I also
OG?
did want to ask Nader. Oh, sorry, Nick. You wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Is there a way for inside Draftbit, we would love to be able to allow folks to see their queries and mutations. Is there a way like users can copy and paste their so I guess I got two questions. Is the schema.graphql file that you have locally the same one that you get generated? So if we wanted users to copy that and be able to hook some of this stuff up automatically, is something like that possible?
Yeah, it is. It's in this build folder, and this is the actual complete schema
cool.
after we run all of our build on it. So this creates additional input fields for all types of arguments for different things that are happening. We have our subscriptions here, our queries, mutations, all that stuff. So yeah, you could do that.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing.
So now we're building on our conference app in a box, and hopefully it'll build before I have to bounce in just a second. But one of the cool things about this app is how you can basically theme it really quickly. So I'm hoping to showcase that, because being able to change the theme into something different within just a couple of seconds is pretty dang cool.
Wow, yeah, I'm super excited to see. It's been really cool to see how quickly you can put all this together and how easy Amplify is.
Yeah, this is really sweet. Peter, when we lose Nader, will we be able to mess around? Is there any way to mess around with this sample app and try and do some stuff with Draftbit and this specific thing that Nader's demoing, or do we need to create some REST endpoints first?
I'm not sure. I guess my first question, Nader, any chance you could invite us to this demo project? I know it's live on air, no pressure.
Yeah, I can do that. Let me see here. So what I'm going to do is, I have a couple things I want to do. So let's see if we can do all these real quick. Nader
has 60 seconds before his Clubhouse chat starts. And
oh no, it doesn't start until 3:00. Central.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I have another thing coming up there. Yeah. This. So do you want me to share the conference app backend with you, or the other one? Because I feel like the conference app backend is going to be tougher to get going, because you actually have to have authentication and authorization headers and stuff.
No worries. Maybe we'll just spend the next 30 minutes going through and signing ourselves up to AppSync, going through that whole process and doing some discovery on our own. We know you have to get going.
What I can do is I can share with you the API key that I use, and you should be able to use that to fetch data if you want to try that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you.
So with the conference app in the box, should be able to go ahead and sign in now. And then we should be able to do the same thing where we say, and then while that's doing it, I'm going to go ahead to Twitter, and I'm going to there was somebody here. Let me get Zara's picture. We basically want to have a conference talk for Zara. So we want to copy that, his picture, and then we're going to go down here to this example query, or mutation, I'm sorry. And we're going to plug this in with his picture.
Nader, while you're wrapping up, I just want to thank you so much. This was so last minute for everyone listening. I just texted Nader, and he was totally open to it last minute. So
anytime, I wish I had the whole hour. Really, we could have covered a lot more, and I would actually love to learn a little bit more about Draftbit.
Yeah, maybe in a couple of weeks we can set up something a little more formal and prepare a full hour's worth of stuff if you're open to that down the road.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I created a talk. And now I'm going to go ahead and open up my text editor, and we're going to retheme this to look a little different. And now when I refresh, ooh, what happened to this image? For some reason, the image didn't come through. Let's try that one more time.
Maybe there's some like hot linking stuff.
Yeah.
You might also have to set a width and height on that image just in case if there's not one set in the code. But
Let me try to drill down. Oh, it looks so good when you have an image. Anyway, I'll figure that out in just a second.
yeah.
Um,
Everything else is showing up though, so you know you can at least see for everyone else watching that like this is in fact working, and that was so fast.
and then the last thing we'll do, and then I'll jump off, is the theme. So the theme is going to be here, and we want to like instead use like a purple theme because this is a pretty cool looking theme. So I can just change the main logo out in this theme file, and then I have a bunch of themes defined here, or you can kind of set a theme that takes
Oh wow!
a bunch of like maybe 8 different colors, like for your primary color, and then you just spread over the theme that you want to leave, and then now we have a new color. Oh, none of the pixels
Cool.
are working because the I've noticed that there must be something going on with something having to do with images with this new version of Xcode. I don't know, but the logo is also not showing up, which is interesting.
Yeah,
But now we have
that's
like,
really cool.
But yeah, but anyway, yeah. So that's it. I'm gonna shoot you the API key for this other app, and I'll delete this app in like 30 or 45 minutes, so no one abuses it. Like that might be watching. But I'll go ahead and shoot you this API key, and if you want to kind of query, I can also let's see the API key. So I'll send you these 2 lines of code here. Let me stop sharing my screen also. So I'll send you this in the chat. And then what else is I going to send? Forgot. I was going to send you something else. I forgot now. I think that's all you should need. Just the header would look something like X API key. And then for the authentication mode, you would need to just set it as, and it should all be the X API key, I think should be lowercase, and the mode needs to be uppercase, but yeah.
Okay.
Cool. X API key. Cool. We'll definitely mess around with this. Nader, thank you so much again for coming on and showing us. This was pretty impressive.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Oh yeah, the last thing, let me share you just the query itself, right? Because I don't know if you're going to.
Oh yeah.
You're going to run this query.
Cool.
There we go. Anyway, all right, later. Thanks for having me. I'll see y'all later.
Yeah, see ya.
Thanks, Nader.
Thanks again.
All right, Peter, where do we go from here?
Cool. How do you feel about exploring Amplify, like start to finish?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that like I'm trying to learn myself is like, like how do we get started? Sort of how we did with Firebase last week, right? So let me share my screen here. We'll go to AWS Amplify and get started from there. So for everyone tuning in, we're doing this live. So there's been no previous setup or anything. We're just gonna learn and try to figure it out ourselves.
This worked out really well when we did this for Firebase, and it was actually like semi-interesting. So let's see if we can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. Yeah,
for sure. Cool. So AWS Amplify. I'm going to go to amplifyapp.com. It looks like that's on a site. AWS Amplify. So build mobile web apps fast. So get started for free. So okay, cool. So get started. Create an app backend. It seems like this is what we want to click here. I'll close this window out. Post my web apps. If you don't have anything, that's totally cool. So we want to create an app backend. Get started. Pick a feature that you want to set up. What do you think, Nick? Data or authentication?
Probably start with data, huh?
Cool. Let's see. Oh, we have some cool examples here too. To-do list schema, blog schema, blank schema. Let's do a blog. Let's just see what happens here. So when you click create new schema. Awesome. So test your app. Test locally. We'll do that in a second. How does data modeling work? Add a model. How you define the data types, add fields, add additional models. Cool. You get this little like panel here that seems to let you just add and remove fields. That's really convenient. Nice. Share data model. I wonder if I can put this in the platform, web, React. Okay, so everything moving forward we'll have to do it in the console, which is totally fine. I'll do that in a second here. I'm just sort of clicking around, so bear with me. So login. So if I wanted to deploy, I have to create a new account. This is pretty cool. So I haven't had to like create an account yet or anything, and it kind of gave me a schema already. So now they have this big orange button here, test locally in your app, which makes sense. This is the screen that we're just on. The platform web. Even if you were building a React Native app, you wouldn't click iOS or Android, you would click web for everyone tuning in. And then framework language React. Okay, let me share my whole screen here, and we can kind of move along and see. Okay, so I'm going to go to my projects folder, npx create React app, React Amplified. If you haven't heard of npx before, it's like a command that's like npm install or yarn install, except it tucks everything away locally. So you don't have to install create React app before running it. And then React Amplified seems to be just the name. So I could just change this to Amplified Draftbit, and that'll work all the same. This process is going to take a second. It always does. For those of you familiar with JavaScript, installing things is, takes a couple of seconds. So you saw the npx command installed some packages in 7 or 8 seconds. What it does is it pulls the create React app code down to your computer and then runs the script all in one step instead of having to do yarn add create React app or npm install create React app. It like simplifies that whole process. Now the second thing that you see here is it's actually running the script. So it's created a basic create React app project for us. We're doing the create React app way instead of the Expo React Native way for now, just because I get the simplified directions here, and this is the first time I'm doing it. Should we go through Amplify again, Nick and I will probably have way more experience, and we'll take like the Expo or React Native route. So if you're wondering why that is, this is why. But the process will generally be the same.
So
Nick,
Peter,
any questions that come to mind? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We got a couple of questions in the chat about, Firebase, and so there's some videos on our YouTube channel about us literally just doing exactly what we're doing right now, exploring Firebase. So definitely check those out. The Draftbit YouTube channel. There's a playlist called From the Team, and there's a few Firebase videos there. But Peter, I was wondering, maybe, I know this is supposed to be an AWS Amplify live stream, but maybe you could just excite people a little bit about what we're working on with Firebase right now at Draftbit.
Yeah, absolutely. We're running some npm installs right now, so we can totally spend some time talking about it. We've been interviewing Draftbit users who have been looking for Firebase support, and it's been going so well. We've gotten so much great feedback and ideas. And the things that we are working on right now are authentication, right? Everyone's talking about how we need authentication, using Firestore. We're exploring, maybe it's possible to add Draftbit actions for analytics and cloud messaging, which is push notifications for both iOS, Android, and the web. So that's where we're at right now. We have some really cool things in store for you all. If you are interested in early Firebase access, please, email maybe Nick or me directly. How do you?
Yeah, I can. What I can have people do is I pasted a link in the chat, but for anyone who's watching this on YouTube, maybe can't see the chat. If you just go to roadmap roadmap.draftbit.com, you're going to see the Firebase integration feature request. And we have a link in there where you can basically sign up to be a beta tester and literally help work with Peter on like helping us get this Firebase integration across the finish line. So again, that link is roadmap.draftbit.com, and look for the Firebase integration feature request.
Cool. Thank you for that, Nick. And we'll stress that we love feedback. Even if you've never used Firebase before and you've used Draftbit, like, please talk to us. We love talking to our users. And any sort of feedback you can offer is always great for us.
Yeah. We got a question from Edward in the chat, Peter. He asked, do you think installing packages from Draftbit will be a thing someday? Doing an npm install of a third package alongside custom code would mean you could do anything.
Yeah, that's a really good question. You're not the first person bringing it up, so great minds think alike. We are entertaining it. We don't know what that would look like yet, in all honesty, but we are definitely entertaining the idea of being able to let you install other packages, or at the very least, if there are packages that you traditionally use and would expect to see, we can at least manually add those now. One of the things that we are doing now is exploring the most popular NPM packages that folks in the Expo world and React Native world use, and automatically add those to the projects should you want them.
That's awesome.
Okay, cool. So there seems to be some issues here, but that's okay. Let's just keep going. And by the way, Nick, if folks have more questions, just feel free to keep asking them along the way.
I just pasted. We do have a feature request on roadmap.draftbit.com for npm package installs. It looks like Edward, looks like you've already uploaded that, so you're ahead of us. But for anyone else who's interested in voting for that feature and being notified when we start working on it, you can click on the link that I just pasted in the chat. MC asks, Draftbit noob question, can I make PWAs with Draftbit? Yes, you can. Our PWAs, they're not full-fledged responsive web apps. They are mobile PWAs, and you can publish PWAs from Draftbit on our free plan. And it's a really quick process, takes about 5 minutes to publish a build of your PWA that you build in Draftbit. And we basically assign you a unique URL to that PWA. So it's some random UUID of characters.draftbit.app, and you can visit that URL immediately and run your app on the web. So yes, you can do PWAs with Draftbit today.
For what it's worth, too, PWAs, according to Google, are mobile only. So, like the desktop stuff, I think they call that something different. So, officially, yes, but to Nick's point, it doesn't work on the desktop for the most part.
I guess technically it does. You will just get like a very stretched screen, unless you're a Flexbox whiz and you can make some really responsive layouts. It's just kind of like a stretched version of your mobile app.
It's sort of like if you tried going to, so Twitter, for example, is a PWA. If on your phone you go to it, right? Like it's really hard to force it to work here. But if you tried getting Twitter to work, right here. So let's see.
There you go.
If I try doing like this. Oh yeah, see, so it automatically loads their other thing, but Twitter has a super talented engineering team. But imagine if this stuff didn't show up here and didn't show up here. That's exactly what would happen. It would just supersize the mobile version onto a like an iPad or desktop screen, if you will. But since Expo and React Native support mobile only as it is, our users have been pretty happy with it. It's more of a feature than a bug, if that makes sense.
Yep.
All right, so we don't have this AWS exports folder here, but I'll just keep messing around. Like I said, we're doing this live, so for everybody tuning in, it's not like we've got stuff, all figured out.
Edward's asking if we plan on supporting Amplify after we're done with the Firebase work. I mean, based on what I'm seeing here today, it's pretty exciting stuff. The Amplify integration doesn't have nearly as many upvotes as the Firebase one does. So I'm going to paste the link in the chat. Let's get that feature upvoted so that it Peter's bringing it up on his screen as well. Everyone go and upvote.
I gotta log in.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Firebase has been the most requested feature. GraphQL comes in a cool third place. And there's a lot of overlap between Amplify and GraphQL. But if you are looking for Amplify support, yeah, upvote it. That's the best way to get our attention. We really want to build with our users, right? For our users. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to put a post. Don't be afraid of letting us know, because that's a great way for us to surface some of that stuff.
One thing maybe we could consider doing, this is probably pretty involved, Peter, and I don't know what your take on this is, but because you can work with any backend that exposes REST API endpoints in Draftbit today by just adding a regular old REST API, maybe we could publish a guide on connecting Amplify to Draftbit, now that we know that it's not just GraphQL, it's also REST.
Yeah.
So we could look into supporting that, and maybe what I'll do is if or when we get that written up and published, I'll post a link in the feature request, so anyone who's upvoted the direct integration with AWS will be notified when we have at least a REST guide. Guides are a lot easier to write, obviously, than direct integrations. So we'll look into doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Let's see here. So something is funky about this. Give me a second. This is just, okay, so I installed the CLI. I need to install globally, which is what I did. Okay, maybe I have to create an account here. I can log into an account. I'm assuming that Zoom will. Okay, let's see here, AWS. Bear with me. To open up the security alert, approve or deny. I would like to approve. Thank you very much.
That's a really nice 2FA. Good job,
Yeah,
Amazon.
Well, 3-factor, if you will, because I got it. Yeah. Cool.
Oh, you want to add mobile? 4-factor. Okay.
Amplify Draftbit, confirm deployment. So, okay, here we go. So I think this is where we'll be able to really mess around with things. So even so, all this stuff is new, but here we are, 20 minutes in, we're almost there. So, bear with us. For anybody who thinks that, we're automatic experts of things, we're not. Any bones you could throw us are always helpful.
Hey, while this is setting up, should we poke around? We kind of like cheated and built the front end of Nader's app. Should we show that off? Do you want?
Yeah. Good call. So
I even put the AWS logo on it because I'm a corporate shill.
That's awesome.
So
this is really cool. Oh, go ahead, Nick. I'll let you drive from here.
So here's what we did. Basically, we have 2 versions of every screen. The first version is just static data. So that's what you're clicking through right now. So it just has like placeholder data in the screens. And then we also have versions of the screens that are kind of connected to fetch components that have no data flowing into them. So in Draftbit, kind of a UI quirk, but if you have a fetch, things nested under a fetch, but you have no data feeding them and they just appear blank. So that's why they appear blank. But I just, I figured it would be cool to be prepared to, if we did get data flowing into Draftbit from AWS, we could simply start connecting up some of these screens to data.
Yeah, let's see what we can do here. Okay, so I'm going to open the admin UI. Yeah, with the REST support, we should be able to, if we can figure out how to get the REST support out of Amplify, we can totally make this happen. So it's deploying here, so we'll give that a second. Now it looks like they've got a REST API thing. So Amplify pool, let's try this. Let's see what happens here. Failed to pull the backend, found no provider plugins. Okay, that's a different story. We'll just try to. That's the API getting started here. So JavaScript. So amplify.add. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different settings here. So I want to go to the API fetching data. Simple cloud. Okay. Maybe there's an API reference we can look at. Okay, here. So one of the ways that we could do is so what I'm trying to figure out is how do we capture the actual API request that's taking place, right? So it looks like with this, we use the Amplify library, which makes it so much easier to do. But what we need to do is, you see Amplify configure here, and then amplify.get or API.get. We want to take a look at what that raw HTTP request looks like. And that's what we would paste into Draftbit.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, so define authorization rules. So there's going to be that token that I wonder if there's like a playground for Rust. API Rust, okay. So we can call these functions from here, authentication. Okay, cool. Oh, there we go. Let's see what happens here. Resolve, okay. If guest users have access to your Rust API, okay, so I would need to add some sort of API key here. It seems like if guest users have access, so maybe in here we can do like guest users. We'll see what that looks like in just maybe users and groups. Authentication setup required. Okay, save and okay, so what I did is I just clicked deploy, and what it's doing is it's setting up the email and password authentication setup. That probably takes a second. Let's see. So it seems like it'll be done in just a moment here. But I imagine then we'll be able to call this function. And so this is what it would look like, Nick. So if this is what our content is, to-dos, or no, blog. So you grab the A, B, C, D, E. That's interesting, 5, 4, 3, 2. So API test. So these are the normal doc. So execute APIs /dev/to-dos. So I imagine create blog, Draftbit, create blog, AWS. And then if I go to REST API, app ID, yeah, that's the app ID. So I would assume that if we wanted to, we would have to fetch the app ID, user management. Okay, so I'm already doing that. That's okay. I suppose we can wait now. So maybe we can't get as far as we wanted to today, but we can continue this journey. I'll spend some time over the next couple of days exploring this on my own, and we can. Now that I know that there's a REST API set up here, right? Once all this is deployed, we will be able to hook up this app with AWS Amplify, and it'll work. So
That's pretty sweet.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I think what we should probably do then, since you just have a couple of minutes left, and it looks like this is going to be deploying for some of that time. If folks have questions for us, if you have suggestions, if you want to know about Draftbit, we're definitely happy to do a little bit of like Q&A before we close out. Oh, MC mentioned, I think Nader told us this REST requires Lambda.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be messing around with this, and I'm going to try to get something set up, something that we could work with. And then, next time we'll even have Nader on for the full hour, and he can really show us the power of all this. So
maybe we can record like a follow-up session to this, Peter, so that we can make sure we show everyone all this, the subsequent steps. We're just not going to get to it in the next 2 minutes, so I don't want to force the issue. This has been super fun. I love doing these explorations with you. I learned so much. Obviously, I'm not a developer. Peter's an amazing developer, so I have a lot of fun. I don't contribute a lot, but I have a lot of fun. Any other questions?
You do. I'm learning too. So thank you.
Any other questions, inputs, comments? Otherwise, we can wrap this up a few minutes early, and everyone can go get their Amplify instances set up on their own because they're all super excited to do so. Okay. Cool. Yeah, thanks for attending, MC. Really great having you. Edward, Helena, William, thank you guys. Great to see you all. And yeah, so I guess quick housekeeping item. This was the last live stream office hours that we did in January. Next month, we're going to be switching things up just a little bit. We're going to be moving over to a platform called Restream. And Restream is going to allow us to stream to YouTube and Twitter and maybe a few other places. But just is a little bit like better suited for these live stream experiences than using a Zoom webinar. So follow us on Twitter. Get your updates from updates.draftbit.com. Get your Draftbit account, and we send this info. There's a bunch of different places to learn about where the next live stream will occur. So just follow along, and we will announce that probably later today when the next, it'll be same time slot next Friday. So 10:30 a.m. US Central Time, 16:30 GMT, and we'll be streaming live to a bunch of platforms. So thanks everyone. Great to be with you today, and